Hey everyone, Ekman here with another video, and today we have a top 16 breakdown for the One Piece OP05 box tournament that I hosted with Brian from Stage 0 last night for Olympus Games. So it was a really fun event. It's our first OP05 event, and kind of like true one to cover here on my website as well. And a couple of things to get started. First, if you guys appreciate these videos, please make sure to hit that like and subscribe button. They do mean a lot. We're almost at 20K, which is our goal for the end of the year. We're like 500 away. So if you guys hit that subscribe button, I really would appreciate it, and you won't regret it since we'll continue to cover One Piece events in the future. And then also, if you guys want to see the VOD or the live stream we did, since we did stream this on Twitch on YouTube, it's linked in the description as well as on my website. It's available to Twitch subscribers and YouTube members, which I do appreciate everyone who supports me and the channel in that way. And this VOD will be re-uploaded here on YouTube and edited down to just the matches in the next couple days, so you guys will be able to check that out in the future as well. But do just say I really do appreciate all the support, especially with the year almost ending. It's been really fantastic, and I really do appreciate it. But jumping into this event in particular, looking at the top 16, we have 5 copies of Sakazuki, 3 purple Luffys, 2 Bettys, 1 Charlotte Katakuri, 1 red purple Law, 1 black Luffy, 1 red purple Luffy, and an ace to round it out. So nothing too wild, I think, in my mind. Sakazuki and Luffy are the 2 strongest leaders in the set in my own mind. I know there's some contention for it, but it makes sense for kind of me. And I don't know if it's because it's my event and people will listen to my stuff and play in these events, but again, not too surprising for it. But the archetype breakdown, again, a lot. I do think, like, you know, there were a lot of Sakazukis and Luffys, but they didn't like overwhelm like the top 16 in that way. Like what 50% of the top 16 was Sakazuki and Luffy, but 50% of the decks that people brought were also those decks. So it kind of makes sense from that kind of mind. And you can kind of see that as well. I think the only one that kind of underperformed was Enel, but we did have one go 4 and 2, so we're going to go over that list as well. But honestly, this was a lot of fun, and if you guys are interested in my future events, make sure to check out my Discord. I don't do much in that Discord besides just run my events, so there's not like a lot of community interaction on that, but I do make announcements for it, and we might do one more event before the end of the year, so make sure to check out keep your ears to the ground on my socials and that. But I'll make an announcement if we do decide to do that. But that's kind of what the event overview goes through, and let's go to the top placing list for each one of these leaders, starting off with our first place list. So this is Noah's first place copy of purple Luffy, and I think purple Luffy is probably my favorite list, or at least of the competitive ones. I like Sakazuki as well, but I like the play style that this deck is able to accomplish, being able to get up to the top end very quickly if you need to, and just have a lot of ways to interact with your opponent's cards and be able to get rewarded for getting as much done as quick as possible. So a couple things to kind of mention. First, I want to say Noah did want me to mention that this Jinbei is supposed to be an extra copy of Queen and Polly. They had to trade them to get an alt art copy of the purple Luffy leader. So I think the trade paid off, but obviously, Queen's, I think, better than Jinbei, especially since there's no searchable, and Polly's very strong, but I think it worked, so it worked out in the best way. So that is the one note they want to mention. But other than that, I think pretty standard. I think a lot of people are playing the Magellan, which can interrupt and kind of disrupt a lot of people's curves, which is very strong. I do like the ulti in page 1 because sometimes you need to go wide on the board. And also we're playing 2 copies of the King, which I don't see this card as often. I think a lot of people kind of like Polly a little bit more, but there are advantages to this card, especially if you already played like the 5-drop uses kit out front. So you're able to play this out, and then the next turn you're able to play the King, and you get not only the removal of a 4 or less, but then you get the Dawn back. So it's pretty much the same as Polly, but it's a 7k body instead of a 6k body. But you can play this a turn early technically. So there's a lot of comparison contrast for it, but I think it's an okay card to add for that. Otherwise, just the standard kind of stuff. We do see 2 copies of Blast Breath, which isn't I think as standard, but I think they make sense for the deck. And then 3 copies of Star Deck 10 Kaido. No secret rare Luffy, which I think is fine. I think Kaido does a really, really good job all by itself, and you really he's a menace, especially if you're able to get up to 9 Dawn quicker than usual, and especially if you already have like Use's Captain Kid out, you get that additional benefit from that too. So not much more to talk about, but congratulations congratulations to Noah for their first place finish with this purple Luffy. Next up, we have our second place. So this is Noah with this is Junius with the Belo Betty, which was quote unquote in the finals. And spoilers, they did lose, but it was a pretty tight match. I think there's a lot going on for this deck, and honestly, if you want to get into this game, this is probably the cheapest deck that you can make right now while getting into it. You can make this deck very cheap. It's already pretty cheap, and I think the only things that like you can miss are like there's no Sanji blockers in this build, which I think should probably be put in it. We kind of have this Kobe that makes kind of the same thing, but it's a little bit cheaper in some ways. But I think that there's a lot of ways to build this deck with cheapness in mind or budget in mind, and I think it's very strong. So the idea that you're able to play a lot of cards out early, we use our Betty's effect to increase their power level and really press your opponent down. And kind of the two cards that you really care about in this deck are the Karasu. Being able to use this to make your opponent's leader like a 4K or 3K if you're able to play both is very strong and works very well for this leader. And then also the Emporio Ivankov. So being able to use this to play out bodies quicker and get the additional effects, I think this is very strong. So we do have 2 copies of Charlotte Cracker, which I do like this as a way to kind of have a comeback mechanic. Sometimes your opponent thinks that they're good to go, and then they hit Charlotte Cracker, and this being able to do 2 damage potentially just puts a lot of games into a win range that your opponent might not have been expecting when they were kind of going in. We have the Koala, which is the most expensive card. Maybe it's the rarest card, but it's very strong. Since it's kind of like only for Revolution Army cards, I don't think this card gets used as much, or it's not as difficult to find, which I think is great. Inazuma is fantastic. Morley's just okay. I think I'd rather put 4 Inazumas than 2 Morleys for a build like this. And we are playing the Energy Hormone and also the 200 million volts. It is a little bit tricky for this deck to go exactly down to 1 life, but you can use Smoothie to help you get there and get this in range, which means you get rid of a blocker for free, and also like you get the boost for it, which is not too bad. And even like worst case, you can use it to get like an additional 1K, even though like the hand size for this deck is pretty abysmal at times. So still very strong. Honestly, I was really surprised by how well this deck was doing today, and we'll have to see if it does better on the main stage in the regional that we have this next weekend. So this is Eunice's list. Congratulations for their second place finish there. Next up, we have Ryan with their red purple Trafalgar Law. And this one was waiting for this set. I think the Star Deck 10 build was fine, but we do have some important cards that we need. Outright, we need the Zoro. This being able to be, you play this on turn 2 if you go, you just play it on turn 2. But being able to attack with this and get the Dawn pretty easily, as long as you take 1 damage, it just means you get the more ramp and added to you, and it helps you out there for the Dawn management. Obviously, Uses Captain Kid is such a good card, being able to play this and then use like the minus effect, and you get the Dawn back as well and active. So I think that's one of the best cards for this deck. Fire Fist and Gamma Knife. I think Fire Fist honestly is a pretty good card for us, especially since we're not doing any searches for Heart Pirates cards. So being able to use this to put more things into range. Minus 4K and minus 5K are pretty similar as is. So I think that's fine for like there's not a lot of cards that are I think 8K. There are some though, but like I think like the 6K 7K barrier is usually where most cards are sitting. So using Fire Fist instead of Gamma Knife is fine. And I think the effect in life is a little bit better. But that's kind of really it. So we just honestly like the idea of this deck is still pretty much the same. We just play a lot of 5K bodies out. We're able to remove cards that our opponents are trying to play that would be able to interact with us and go from there. The only other thing is that we do have like the 3-drop law that came out in the set that's not in this build, and I kind of agree that I haven't seen as many people use that card. It is a little bit tricky, mostly because like it does draw you, but the card pool for it is not amazing right now, so you don't feel like you're finding as much value from that, especially because you kind of have to like it's a 3-drop with no counter, and it's kind of in a tricky spot. So I kind of agree with it. I know some people still use it, and I think that's fine, but I don't think it's needed, and I think that Ryan showed us with this list here today. So that's the build. Congratulations to Ryan for their finish there. And then next up we have Sakazuki. We have 2 Sakazukis in the top or with an X1 record. We have Cameron's build here and then Max's build here. So pretty similar in a lot of the composure for support. Just a little bit of differences with some key cards. So the biggest thing is that we do have like the 3-drop Hina here for Cameron's build, being able to use this card to like, it's really good if you have to go first in like the mirror matches and stuff, being able to use it to draw a card and play it on curve, and it's a 4K, so it's not too bad to like boost it up to, which is really nice. Obviously, we play the other 3-drop Hina as well. Rob Lucci and Rebecca are good cards. I don't think I have to prove that anymore, even though it's like week 0 as is. 7-drop Borsellino, I really do like this card in this deck. It's usually our top end for most cases, being able to use this to, gets rid of a 5 or less if we attack with our leader, and it's great to put a lot of other things into range with like if you had a Kuzan just sitting out, a Great Eruption, an Ice Age, and like Houndblaze is in a good spot too. Like, it's just a good card. And then you'll notice that the build here for Max is very similar. I think they're probably like 90% the same cards. The only big difference is the inclusion of the Kaido and no copies of the 3-drop Hina. So instead using, just changing your ratios. Just adding some more Kuzans and Borsellinos to kind of go for that. 10-drop Kaido is a little bit of a cheese card, but you can play it and then you get to draw 4, which is like an amazingly large amount of cards in this game. If your opponent just kind of has a weird turn where they can't do anything, or like their tempo's a little bit off, being able to play this to get the card draw and then establish a really difficult to remove body on board, I think is great. And I think can be like a great card in like the mirror match if you're kind of stalling out towards the end. Being able to play this, I think you could be in a really good spot, and it helps you find your Rebeccas, which again, like in a lot of ways, like your win rate depends on how many Rebeccas you see on any occasion, so that kind of helps that there. So these are both of the Sakazuki lists, and congratulations to there are more, but the ones with X1 records. So these are Cameron's and Max's builds. Congratulations for their finishes there. And the next up we have the star deck Luffy. So this is probably the one like unknown, I would say, into this. This is not a deck that was definitely on my radar. I know that like in general, like Sakazuki is really, really good. And so when you are playing, I'd say like a black leader in this game right now, you have to be like, okay, is this better than what I could be doing with Sakazuki with a similar build, right? And so Luffy, you kind of have to play to his advantages, and the advantages to Luffy are being able to be a little bit more aggressive, being able to get removal and get benefits for the removal with the leader effect of you getting the Dawn whenever a card is KO'd. So I think that's great. And so we obviously do play Rebecca and Rob Lucci because they are very, very good cards still, but being able to use this deck to advantage of that, I think is good. In my mind, like, Luffy, Smoker are the Rob Lucci. I think they're all kind of fighting for like the second best black leader, and I think like this Luffy just always shows up every once in a while and surprises me that, oh hey, I can still top, I'm still in a good spot, which is really cool. So other than that, nothing I'd say too different with the inclusions. We do have like the Kobe for removal and the Garp. I do like the Garp in this deck because they're like 4 or less. There's a lot of cards that are in that range, I feel like, right now compared to previous metas. So that's in a good spot for you. And just like the Isho can get the hand destruction Kuzan. Kuzan just helps you pretty much like win the game and can stabilize and just help you just remove anything. Like Kuzan with Rob Lucci with Kuzan out on the board is disgusting, and then you play it, and then your Luffy becomes a 7K leader. All that's just very, very good. So I don't really have much more to say. Just big congratulations to Alex for their finish with this deck. And then lastly, our last of our X1s, we do have Frank with this red purple Luffy. And honestly, like as time's gone on, I've been enjoying this leader more and more. I've been playing a kind of different build, but there are some really cool things that this leader can do specifically. And they're playing, I would say, like the more standard build, and the idea that we play Nami to be able to find our searchers and those kind of cards. So we can find the Zoro. So Zoro on turn. So if you want to go first, you play Nami. Turn 2, you play Zoro, and then you're already at 3 or less life. So you can then attack with it next turn. Be able to go up to an even curve from odd curve, which means you can go to 8 Dawn, which means you can play your new gate. So if that makes sense. We go to 4, Dawn, next turn we go to 6, next turn we go to 8, use leader effect to go to 9, we can play Newgate. So I think that's very strong. They also are playing the 10-drop Secret Rare Luffy, which I think this is better in red purple Luffy compared to being where it's at in the regular purple Luffy. So especially since you get like the Dawn back for free the next turn, and you get like more interaction without having to lose life. I think this is a better card for that build, and it really kind of helps you out in a lot of ways. So I think that's good. And then we do have a couple, I would say, like more alternative choices. So we have like Jambe, one of cost, sure, it's like another copy of Rush Luffy. So especially when our leader is already a Straw Hat, I think that makes sense. We have Guild, which helps us draw cards, but is very removable. I do still just like Queen in general because we get the on play. Even if we get one less card, I think that's fine. We have a couple 2Ks, including Khalifa. We have the Usopp, which has a pretty interesting KO effect. So it does kind of prevent your opponent from like just using like getting rid of the card with like willy-nilly with like using a Rebecca combo, because this can trade with the Rebecca afterwards, which is nice. So I think this card's fine if you're playing already the Straw Hats, but it is a little bit of an interesting inclusion. And then the Gatling, Rad Beam, Guard Point, kind of interesting stuff. So I like this build. I think I'm going to probably play more Red Purple Luffy as time goes on. And congratulations to Alex for their to Frank for their finish there with this build. Then next up, we're going into our X2. So we have 2 copies of Katakuris. We have Kyle and Dan, who got into the top 16. So running pretty similar builds in a lot of ways. I guess these pairs are the same here, but there's not a lot of cards we add. There are a couple cards we add, but they're not, I'd say, a lot of them. We have like some more 2Ks that are grid. So like the Satori, being able to use this card to just either be a 2K or just be like a card you can play off your life for free if you need like one more attack during the next turn. We have the Gadatsu, which promotes more of a control, I'd say, play style, because it, if you don't attack at all, you can use this to play to pop something pretty expensive. So if your opponent has 4 life, being able to play this and pop a 4 cost, I think is great, especially if you end up going first on curve. So I think that's good for there. I think 7-drop Linlin got better in this meta too, being able to use this to it's just like a good card on curve in a lot of ways. And if people are being more defensive or they don't want to give you life, I think it's great. We've already seen 200 million volts, Thunderbolt at 3 copies, and just kind of the rest. So like less and less like Big Mom Pirate cards throughout these. I think the idea that which is a little bit dangerous with Perospero, because this will mean that this card will whiff more often, but I'd say it's less likely in this build, running a lot of the same things. We're playing the Yamato too. No copies of Katakuri, which could be an ease of access, because I will say like yellow is moderately expensive because of the 8-drop Katakuri. Pretty much every deck that's yellow wants to play that card, and it's a secret rare, which means they are a little bit more rare in general. So, but other than that, I think Katakuri does have a home in this meta. Not a lot of changes from what it's looked like before. A couple new adds of just more good cards that could be in your security, and that's kind of it. So this is Kyle and Dan's list. Congratulations for their finishes there. Next up, we have Ace, which he keeps surprising me, just kind of showing up every once in a while. And ironically, I think he has a really good potential matchup against Sakazuki, since you play so many cards with Rush and you really don't care about your cards getting KO'd as much, because you don't usually build as many cards on the board. Are there Marcos, which they can get hounded, but I think that's fine. Like Luffy gets like the immediate advantage, and Ace does too, so I think that's important. Also, we're not playing 9-drop Newgate in this build, which I think is fine. I did do some Ace testing, and I felt like it was just stuck in my hand more times than not, so I think it's fine without it. We have a lot of the 1-drop builds without playing like the Dan too, which is great. Jozu, Marku, and Usopp, again, we kind of talked about this. It's your opponent does not want to KO this sometimes, because it does get that good interaction with you, and then a good amount of events. So only 15, which is, I'd say, probably about the middle of the pack of how many events you run for Ace. But we have the Flame Emperor, the Fire Fist, Crossfire, Guard Point, Seaquake, and Rad Beam. And 3 copies of Seaquake. We usually don't see this many of them, but I think there's a lot of good cards, especially like this can just get rid of Rebecca's. This can get rid of Rebecca's very easy. And I think that's kind of the name of the game right now, with it being one of the more popular cards in this meta. And like Ace being able to play this, get minus 3k, and then get rid of a 6k with Seaquake is very, very good. So congrats to Abishan for their build there. And it's going to be interesting to see if Ace does any better. I mean, is this our only mono red leader? I guess, yeah, it's our only mono red leader for this top 16, which is actually really interesting. Being out Zoro and Newgate, which were present but not super duper present. like they've been before. So this is their list. Congratulations. And to wrap it up, we do have one copy of Enel that did get a 4-2 finish. We do have Michael's build of it here. And I honestly, if I was to choose between Katakuri and Enel, I am more of an Enel player. I think maybe just because it's the newer build, but I feel like I have more control on what my plays are and what I get to do with it. So I think that's strong. You can definitely make this deck very top heavy. We see 2 Enels, 3 Linlins, 3 Katakuris, and 4 Yamatos. And I think the most unfortunate thing about this deck is that it lives and dies by the Yamatos. This card is not really searchable for us, but if we're able to find it at the right time, we're able to just continue our life heal. We get to build a board, get some removal on our opponent's board, and really capitalize on that, which is really strong. So other than that, it's just kind of dependent on that, which I do like running the Shirahoshis to help us find more, go deeper into our hands since we are playing a little bit, greedier here. It's a great card to put back with Katakuri as well for healing and just kind of the rest of the build here. So honestly, I like Enel right now. This is the Big Mom variant. I know that the Sky Island variant is pretty popular too, but I do like the Big Mom variant, being able to find like your boss monsters a little bit easier, including your Katakuri, which does heal you, I think is very strong. So this is the build here. Congratulations to Michael for their 4-2 finish. And that's going to be it for this video. Again, I do appreciate you guys watching this. I'm exhausted right now. It's like 2 a.m. like after the event. So if you guys appreciate these videos, please make sure to hit that like and subscribe button. There's going to be a lot more OP05 content in the next couple weeks, and I'm really excited to share that with you guys when we get it. So that's going to be it. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you all next time.
Damn it. Damn it.